The alien ship drifted silently through space like a broken bird. Its name was Serenity's Edge, and it carried 23 crew members who were now facing death. The ship's main engine had exploded 3 days ago, sending metal pieces flying through the hull. Emergency repairs had stopped the air from leaking out, but they could not fix the engine. Thelvar stood in the control room, looking at the damage reports on his screen. He was the chief science officer, a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms. His species, the Vellani, were peaceful explorers who traveled the galaxy studying new worlds and making maps of space. They had never expected something like this to happen. "How much time do we have?" asked Captain Yelthara as she walked up behind him. She was smaller than Thelvar, but commanded respect from everyone on the ship. Her voice was calm, but Thelvar could hear the worry underneath. 2 days, maybe 3, Thelvar said, touching the screen with one of his long fingers. "The life support system is failing. We are too far from home for any rescue ship to reach us in time." The captain nodded, slowly. She had already known this, but hearing it said out loud made it real. Their home world was weeks away, even for the fastest Vellani ships. No one in the Galactic Confederation had ships fast enough to save them. "What about the emergency beacon?" she asked. "I activated it when the engine exploded," Thelvar replied. "But there are no Confederation ships in this area. We are at the edge of explored space." Captain Yelthara walked to the big window that showed the stars outside. This part of space was dangerous. Strange energy storms moved between the stars, and chunks of rock flew around like bullets. Most ships avoided this area completely. That was why they had come here, to study things that other explorers would not risk their lives to see. "Wait," Thelvar said suddenly, his 4 arms moving quickly over his controls. "I am picking up something strange." "What is it?" "There is a star system nearby. Our sensors show it has planets, and one of them might have life on it." Captain Yelthara turned around. "Life? What kind of life?" Thelvar studied his readings. "It is hard to tell from here, but I see energy patterns that look like technology. Very basic technology, but definitely made by intelligent beings." The captain thought about this. The Galactic Confederation had rules about contacting new species. They were supposed to study them for years before making contact, but rules meant nothing when you were about to die. "Could they help us?" she asked. "I do not know," Thelvar said honestly. "Their technology seems very primitive. They probably do not even know that other species exist. But we have no other choice," the captain finished for him. Thelvar nodded. "I could change our emergency beacon to send a signal toward their planet. If they have any kind of radio equipment, they might hear it." "Do it," Captain Yelthara said without hesitation. Thelvar began working on the beacon. He had to be careful with the message. It needed to be simple enough for primitive beings to understand, but also clear that they needed help. He added mathematical patterns and pictures that showed their ship was broken and they were in danger. While Thelvar worked, other crew members gathered in the control room. Mordesh, the chief engineer, was covered in oil and metal dust from trying to fix the engine. Silvana, the medical officer, looked tired from treating crew members who had been hurt in the explosion. "Are we really going to ask primitives for help?" Mordesh asked. His voice sounded doubtful. "What else can we do?" Silvana replied. "Even if they cannot help us directly, maybe they can send our message to someone who can." "If they even understand what we are sending them," Mordesh said. Thelvar finished programming the beacon and looked up at his captain. "It is ready. Should I send it?" Captain Yelthara looked around at her crew. They all looked scared, but they also looked hopeful. It was a small hope, but it was better than nothing. "Send it," she said. Thelvar pressed a button, and the signal shot out into space toward the third planet in the nearby star system. It would take several hours to reach that world, and even longer before they might get any kind of response. "Now, we wait," the captain said. The hours passed slowly. The crew tried to keep busy, but everyone was thinking about the same thing. Were there really intelligent beings on that distant planet? Would they understand the message? Could they help? Or would they even try? Meanwhile, far away on the third planet, the signal was racing through space toward a blue and green world covered with water and clouds. The beings on this planet called it Earth, and they were very different from the peaceful Villani. At a space monitoring station on Earth, Lee Day was working the night shift. He sat in front of several computer screens, listening for signals from space. Most nights were quiet, with only the normal radio waves from distant stars. But tonight was different. His computers began making noise, and strange patterns appeared on his screens. Lee Day had never seen anything like it before. The signal was clearly artificial, made by some kind of intelligence. But it was not coming from any human spacecraft. Lee Day's hands shook as he recorded the signal and began studying it. There were mathematical patterns that seemed familiar and pictures that showed what looked like a damaged spacecraft. The message was asking for help. "This cannot be real," Lee Day said to himself, but his instruments did not lie. Someone or something in space was sending a distress signal to Earth. He reached for his phone and called his supervisor. "Captain Kimbo, you need to get down here right now. I think we just received our first message from aliens." Captain Kimbo had been sleeping, but she was instantly awake when she heard those words. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "And Captain?" "I think they are in trouble." Back on the Serenity's edge, the crew waited in the darkness. They did not know that their message had been received, or that the beings they had contacted were already working to understand it. They did not know that humans were very different from other species in the galaxy, that when humans heard a call for help, they did not hesitate to respond. The Villani thought they had contacted a primitive species that might not even understand their message. They had no idea they had just asked the most dangerous and helpful species in the galaxy to come and rescue them. Captain Kim Bo rushed into the monitoring station still wearing her sleeping clothes. Her hair was messy and she looked tired, but her eyes were sharp and focused. Lee Day showed her the strange signal on his computer screens. "Play it again," she said, leaning over his shoulder to get a better look. The signal repeated its pattern of numbers and pictures. Captain Kim Bo had studied many languages during her military training, but this was completely different from anything human. Still, the meaning was clear enough. Someone was in trouble and needed help. "Where is it coming from?" she asked. Lee Day pointed at his star map. "About 12 light hours away, in the Kepler 442 system. But, Captain, that area of space is really dangerous. There are radiation storms, asteroid fields, and gravity wells that could crush a ship." Captain Kim Bo studied the map. The signal was coming from what human space pilots called the graveyard, a region filled with cosmic hazards that made travel extremely risky. Most human ships avoided it unless they absolutely had to go there. "How fast can we get a message?" "To Admiral Park Jin?" she asked. "I can have him on the phone in 5 minutes," Lee Day replied. "Do it." While Lee Day made the call, Captain Kim Bo studied the alien message more carefully. The pictures showed a ship that was clearly damaged. Whatever these beings were, they were stuck in one of the most dangerous parts of space near Earth. Admiral Park Jin arrived at the Space Center 2 hours later. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. He had commanded Earth's space fleet for 10 years and had never dealt with anything like this before. "Let me see this signal," he said as soon as he walked into the room. They played the message for him several times. Admiral Park Jin listened carefully, asking questions about the technical details. He brought in Dr. Oh Bin, Earth's best expert on communication, to help figure out what the aliens were trying to say. "It is definitely a distress call," Dr. Oh Bin said after studying the signal for an hour. "These mathematical patterns are universal. Any intelligent species would understand them. They are saying their ship is broken, and they need rescue." "How many beings are we talking about?" Admiral Park Jin asked. "Hard to say for sure, but the energy patterns suggest a crew of 20 to 30 individuals." Admiral Park Jin walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Earth had been preparing for first contact with aliens for decades, but they had always imagined it would happen differently. They thought aliens would come to Earth, or that humans would find them during exploration missions. No one had expected aliens to send a distress call. "Sir," Captain Kim Bo said, "we have to respond. If there are people in trouble out there, we cannot just ignore them." "People?" Admiral Park Jin raised an eyebrow. "Beings. Whatever they are intelligent, and they need help." The Admiral nodded slowly. "The problem is the location. That area of space is a death trap. We would be risking human lives to save aliens we know nothing about." "With respect, sir," Captain Kim Bo said, "that is exactly what we would do for humans." Admiral Park Jin thought about this. She was right. The human military had a long tradition of risking everything to save people in danger. It did not matter if those people were from different countries or even different species. "How many ships would we need?" he asked. Captain Kim Bo had been thinking about this question. "At least 3 heavy cruisers and a support vessel. The rescue ship would need to navigate through asteroid fields and radiation storms. We would also need our best pilots." "I volunteer to lead the mission," said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Captain Choi Min walking into the room. She was the commander of the heavy cruiser Soul's Hammer and one of the most experienced pilots in the fleet. She had flown through dangerous space before and always brought her crew home safely. "Captain Choi," Admiral Park Jin said, "this is not a normal rescue mission. We have no idea what we will find out there." "All the more reason to send experienced crews," Captain Choi replied. "My ship has the best armor and weapons in the fleet. If these aliens are hostile, we can defend ourselves. If they are friendly, we can help them." Admiral Park Jin looked around the room at the faces of his officers. They all looked determined. This was what humans did. They helped others, even when it was dangerous. "Very well," he said finally. "Captain Choi, you will lead the rescue mission. Take the Soul's Hammer, the Busan's Pride, and the Inchin's Shield. I also want the support ship Healing Hand with medical supplies and repair equipment." "Yes, sir," Captain Choi said with a smile. "Lieutenant Commander Yoon Sol will be your navigator," the Admiral continued. "She knows that region of space better than anyone." Yoon Sol was a quiet woman with excellent skills at reading star maps and plotting safe courses through dangerous areas. She had guided ships through storms and asteroid fields that other navigators said were impossible to cross. "How long until we can launch?" Admiral Park Jin asked. "The ships can be ready in 6 hours," Captain Choi said. "We just need to load supplies and brief the crews." "Do it," As the officers rushed to prepare for the mission, Admiral Park Jin stayed behind with Dr. Obin to work on a response message for the aliens. "What should we tell them?" Dr. Obin asked. "Keep it simple," the Admiral replied. "Let them know we received their message and help is coming." Dr. Obin created a basic message using the same mathematical patterns the aliens had used. It showed human ships traveling toward their location. He added pictures of medical supplies and repair tools to show that humans were coming to help, not to attack. 6 hours later, 4 human warships left Earth's orbit and headed toward the dangerous region where the alien ship was stranded. The ships were massive and heavily armed, designed to fight in the harsh environment of space. They carried powerful engines, thick armor, and weapons that could destroy asteroids or enemy vessels. On the bridge of Seoul's Hammer, Captain Choi Min studied the navigation charts with Lieutenant Commander Yoon Sol. "The radiation storms are particularly bad right now," Yoon Sol said, pointing at the screen. "We will have to take a longer route to avoid the worst of them." "How much longer?" Captain Choi asked. "About 8 hours instead of 6. Captain Choi nodded. 8 hours was still fast by human standards, but she hoped it would not be too late for the aliens. Meanwhile, on the alien ship Serenity's Edge, the crew was starting to lose hope. Thelvar checked his instruments constantly, but there was no sign that anyone had heard their message. "Maybe they do not have the technology to receive radio signals," Mordesh said sadly. "Or maybe they received it but do not care," Silvana added. Captain Yelthara tried to stay positive for her crew, but she was beginning to think they would die alone in the darkness of space. The life support systems were failing faster than expected, and they only had about 18 hours of air left. Then, Thelvar's instruments began making noise. "Captain!" he called out excitedly. "I am receiving a signal from the primitive planet." Everyone gathered around his station as he played. The message. It was simple but clear. The primitive beings had understood their call for help and were sending assistance. "They are actually coming?" Captain Yelthara asked in amazement. "Yes," Thelvar said, studying the message. "According to this, they have multiple ships heading our way." The crew looked at each other with new hope. They still did not believe that primitive beings could actually save them, but at least someone cared enough to try. That was more than they had expected from the universe. The human fleet moved through space like hunting wolves. Captain Choi Min stood on the bridge of Seoul's Hammer, watching the navigation displays as Lieutenant Commander Yoon Sol guided them through the dangerous region. Outside the thick windows, she could see radiation storms crackling with deadly energy and chunks of rock spinning through the darkness. "Asteroid field ahead," Yoon Sol announced calmly. "Density is high, but we can navigate through it." Captain Choi nodded. What Yoon Sol called high density would terrify most space travelers. The asteroids were moving fast and unpredictably, like a three-dimensional minefield. But human ships were built for this kind of challenge. "Take us through," Captain Choi ordered. The 4 human ships moved into the asteroid field with practiced ease. Their computers tracked thousands of moving objects, while their pilots made tiny adjustments to avoid collisions. To the humans, this was just another day of space travel. On the alien ship Serenity's Edge, Thelvar watched his sensors in disbelief. The primitive ships were not only surviving the asteroid field, they were moving through it quickly and smoothly. "This is impossible," he said to Captain Yelthara. "No ship should be able to navigate that field at such speed." "Are you sure those readings are correct?" the captain asked. Thelvar checked his instruments again. Yes, Captain. 4 large vessels are approaching our position. They are moving through hazards that would destroy most Confederation ships. Captain Yelthara stared at the display screen. According to their sensors, the approaching ships were huge, much larger than typical Vellani vessels. They also seemed to be heavily armored and equipped with powerful engines. What kind of primitives build ships like that? She wondered aloud. Maybe they are not as primitive as we thought, Thelvar replied. On Soul's Hammer Communications, Specialist Kang Hai was working with Dr. O Bin to establish contact with the alien vessel. They had been sending simple mathematical messages, but they needed to create a way to actually talk to each other. I think I have something, Dr. O Bin said, looking up from his computer. Their response patterns suggest they understand basic mathematics and physics. We can use that as a foundation for language. How long will it take to build a translation system? Captain Choi asked. Maybe an hour if they cooperate, Dr. Obin replied. We need them to send us more examples of their language. Kang Hai began transmitting a series of questions to the alien ship. She sent pictures of numbers, shapes, and simple objects, asking the aliens to respond with their own words for each item. On the Serenity's edge, Thelvar received these strange messages and began to understand what the primitive beings were trying to do. They wanted to learn the Vellani language so they could communicate properly. Should I respond? He asked Captain Yelthara. Yes, she said. If they want to help us, we need to be able to talk to them. Thelvar began sending back Vellani words and phrases. He included basic concepts like numbers, directions, and simple actions. The mathematical foundation made it easier for both sides to understand each other. After an hour of this exchange, Dr. Obin had built a basic translation program. It was rough and incomplete, but it could handle simple conversations. Try it, Captain Choi said. Kang Hai sent the first translated message. We are humans from planet Earth. We received your distress call. Do you need assistance? On the alien ship. The crew gathered around Thelvar's station as the translated message appeared on their screen. The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. They call themselves humans, Thelvar said with wonder, and they are asking if we need help. Captain Yelthara thought for a moment, then told Thelvar what to send back. We are Vellani, from the planet Velanus. Our ship is damaged and life support is failing. We have 18 crew members alive. Can you help us? The message traveled back to the human fleet. When Captain Choi read it, she felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. These were the first aliens humanity had ever contacted, and they were depending on humans to save their lives. Send back. We are coming to help you. Our ships will arrive in 2 hours. Prepare for rescue operations. As the human fleet got closer, the Vellani crew could see them more clearly on their sensors. The ships were unlike anything in the Galactic Confederation database. They were blocky and heavily built with thick armor and obvious weapon systems. These do not look like exploration ships, Mordesh observed nervously. They look like warships. Why would a primitive species need such heavily armed vessels? Sylvana wondered. Captain Yelthara was thinking the same thing. In the peaceful Galactic Confederation, most ships were designed for science, trade, or transportation. Military vessels were rare and lightly armed, since major conflicts had not happened for thousands of years. But these human ships looked like they were built for war. On the bridge of Soul's Hammer, Captain Choi was having her own concerns. The alien vessel was much more fragile than human ships. Its hull was thin, and its design focused on efficiency rather than survival. It looked like it had been built by people who never expected to encounter serious danger. Their ship design is very different from ours, Lieutenant Commander Yunsol observed. It seems optimized for peaceful operations. That makes sense if they come from a peaceful civilization, Captain Choi replied. We need to be very careful during the rescue. Our equipment might be too rough for their technology. Engineering. Commander Nam Wu was already studying the alien ship's design through their long-range sensors. Their hull material is some kind of lightweight composite, he reported. Much thinner than our standard plating. We will need to use soft docking procedures. As the human fleet approached the Serenity's edge, both sides prepared for their first face-to-face contact with another intelligent species. The humans loaded their rescue equipment and prepared medical facilities for alien visitors. The Villani gathered in their main airlock, nervous but hopeful. Contact in 30 minutes, Yunsol announced. Captain Choi opened a communication channel to the alien ship. Villani vessel, this is Captain Choi Min of the human ship Soul's Hammer. We are approaching your position. Please stand by for rescue. Operations. Human ship, this is Captain Yelthara of the Villani vessel Serenity's Edge, came the reply through the translation system. We are grateful for your assistance. We did not expect such a fast response. When humans hear a distress call, we respond immediately, Captain Choi said simply. This statement puzzled the Villani crew. In their experience, rescue operations required careful planning, committee meetings, and risk assessments. The idea of responding immediately to help unknown aliens seemed almost reckless. But as they watched the 4 massive human warships position themselves around their damaged vessel, the Villani began to realize that these primitive beings were far more capable than anyone had imagined. Beginning docking procedures, Captain Choi announced. The Soul's Hammer extended a flexible docking tube toward the alien ship. The procedure looked routine to the human crew, but the Villani watched, in amazement as the massive warship performed delicate maneuvers with perfect precision. They make it look so easy, Thelvar said quietly. Maybe for them it is, Captain Yelthara replied. A few minutes later, the docking was complete. For the first time in galactic history, humans and aliens were about to meet face to face. Neither side knew that this moment would change the entire galaxy forever. The airlock between the 2 ships opened with a soft hiss. Captain Yelthara and Thelvar waited nervously on the Villani side, not knowing what to expect. They had put on their best ceremonial robes for this historic first meeting between their species. Through the doorway came 3 figures in strange, bulky suits. The humans looked nothing like the Villani had imagined. They were shorter and more muscular, with thick bones and dense bodies. Their suits were clearly designed for protection rather than ceremony. Captain Choi Min removed her helmet, revealing a face that looked both kind and determined. Behind her came Dr. Song Na, the fleet's chief medical officer, and engineering commander Nam Wu, carrying a large case of tools. Captain Yelthara? Captain Choi said, her words coming through the translation device on her belt. Yes, I am Captain Yelthara, the tall blue-skinned alien replied. Welcome aboard our ship. We are very grateful for your help. Captain Choi bowed slightly, a gesture of respect she had learned was common among many Earth cultures. We are honored to meet you. Our medical officer needs to check your crew for injuries, and our engineer will examine your ship's damage. Dr. Song Na stepped forward with her medical scanner. The device looked rough and military-grade compared to the delicate Villani equipment. "May I scan you for health problems?" she asked politely. Captain Yelthara agreed, and Dr. Song Na began her examination. The human doctor worked quickly and efficiently, her scanner beeping as it analyzed alien biology. "Interesting," Dr. Song Na said, studying her readings. "Your bone density is much lower than humans, and your muscle mass is about 60% of what we would expect for your size. You must come from a world with lower gravity than Earth." "How did you know that?" Thelvar asked in surprise. "Your body structure tells the story," Dr. Song Na explained. "Humans evolved on a heavy world with strong gravity. Your people clearly evolved somewhere more gentle." While Dr. Song Na continued her medical examinations, Engineering Commander Nam Wu was studying the Villani ship's damaged systems. He whistled softly as he looked at their engine design. "This is beautiful work," he told Captain Yelthara. "Very elegant and efficient, but it is built for perfect conditions." "What happened?" "To cause the explosion?" Thelvar explained how they had encountered an unexpected gravity well that put stress on their engine containment system. "Our safety systems should have prevented the overload," he said sadly. Nam Wu nodded as he examined the damaged components. "Your safety systems are excellent for normal operations, but this kind of gravitational shear would challenge even human engineering." He paused and looked at the alien engineer. "Though we probably would have built the containment vessel with thicker walls." "Thicker walls would make the engine less efficient," Thelvar pointed out. "True," Nam Wu agreed. "But they would also prevent explosions. Human engineering focuses on survival first, efficiency second." This was the Villani crew's first hint that humans came from a very different kind of world than their own. Dr. Song Na finished examining the crew and gathered them in the ship's common area. "You have several crew members with radiation exposure," she announced. "Nothing fatal, but they need treatment. We also have 3 with broken bones from the explosion." "Can you help them?" Captain Yelthara asked. "Of course," Dr. Song Na replied. "Our medical bay is equipped for human injuries, but the principles are the same. I have already synthesized medication that should work with your biology." The Villani were amazed at how quickly the human doctor had adapted her treatments for alien patients. In the Galactic Confederation, developing new medical procedures took months of careful testing. "How can you be sure the medicine will not harm us?" Silvana, the Villani medical officer, asked. Dr. Song Na showed her the readings from her medical scanner. "Your cellular structure is similar enough to humans that I can predict how the drugs will work. Plus, I am starting with very small doses and monitoring for reactions." This casual confidence impressed Silvana. Human medical science seemed much more advanced than she had expected from a primitive species. Meanwhile, Nam Wu was working on the damaged engine with tools that seemed impossibly advanced to the Villani engineers. His equipment could cut through metal like butter and weld components back together with perfect precision. "How long will the repairs take?" Captain Yelthara asked. Nam Wu looked up from his work. "About 4 hours to get your engine working safely. Maybe 2 more hours to optimize the performance." Mordesh, the Villani chief engineer, stared at him in shock. 4 hours? Our own engineers estimated it would take weeks to repair this damage, and that was if we had access to a full shipyard. "Different approaches," Nam Wu said with a shrug. "Human tools are built for field repairs under combat conditions. We have to be able to fix anything, anywhere with whatever we have available. Combat conditions? Thelvar asked. Do humans fight wars in space? Nam Wu realized he had said something that might worry the aliens. Not recently, he said carefully, but we prepare for all possibilities. As the rescue operation continued, the cultural differences between the two species became more obvious. The humans worked with a speed and efficiency that amazed the Villani, but their equipment and methods seemed designed for a much more dangerous universe. Captain Choi Min noticed the aliens' reactions and tried to explain. Humans come from a world where survival is not guaranteed, she said. Our planet has storms, earthquakes, dangerous animals, and many other hazards. We learn to build everything to last and to help each other quickly when trouble comes. What kind of storms? Captain Yelthara asked. Captain Choi thought for a moment. Hurricanes with winds over 300 kilometers per hour, tornadoes that can destroy entire cities, earthquakes that shake the ground so hard that buildings fall down. The Villani crew looked at each other in horror. Volanus had gentle weather and stable geology. The idea of living with such constant danger seemed impossible. How do you survive on such a world? Sylvana asked. We build strong, Captain Choi replied simply. And we help each other. Dr. Song Na had moved the injured Villani to the human medical bay for treatment. The aliens were amazed by the advanced equipment and the doctor's casual expertise in treating alien biology. In our medical schools, Sylvana said as she watched Dr. Song Na work, we spend years learning to treat just Villani physiology. How can you treat aliens you have never seen before? Emergency medicine, Dr. Song Na explained as she set a broken bone. Human doctors have to be ready for anything. We treat injuries from accidents, natural disasters, and combat. Learning to adapt quickly is part of our training. The word combat made the Villani uncomfortable again. They were starting to realize that humans lived with a level of danger and conflict that was unknown in the peaceful Galactic Confederation. As Nam Wu worked on the engine repairs, he explained human engineering philosophy to the fascinated Villani, engineers. We call it over-engineering, he said. We build everything stronger than it needs to be, with backup systems for the backup systems. That must be very expensive, Mordesh observed. Less expensive than dying, Nam Wu replied matter-of-factly. By the end of the day, the Villani ship was not only repaired but improved. Nam Wu had upgraded their safety systems and strengthened several critical components. Dr. Song Na had treated all the injured crew members and given them medicine for the radiation exposure. We cannot thank you enough, Captain Yelthara said, as the humans prepared to return to their ships. You have saved our lives. That is what we do, Captain Choi replied. When someone calls for help, humans respond. As the human crew departed, the Villani were left with many questions. These primitive beings had technology that surpassed Galactic Confederation standards in many ways. Their medicine was more advanced, their engineering was more robust, and their response time was impossibly fast. Most troubling of all, everything about human technology and culture suggested they came from a world where danger was normal and violence was expected. The Villani had never encountered a species like this before. What have we gotten ourselves into? Thelvar wondered aloud as he watched the massive human warships preparing to escort them to safety. I do not know, Captain Yelthara replied, but I think the galaxy is about to change forever. The journey back to Villani space took 3 days. During this time, Captain Yelthara and her crew learned more about humanity than they had ever expected. The humans were friendly and helpful, but every conversation revealed how different their two species really were. On the second day, Thelvar was visiting the human ship Soul's Hammer when he asked Captain Choi Min about Earth's history. What he learned shocked him. "Your species has fought wars for thousands of years?" he asked in disbelief. "Yes," Captain Choi replied calmly. "Competition for resources, territory, and ideas has always driven conflict on our world. Only in the last few centuries have we learned to work together." Thelvar thought about this. "The Velani have been peaceful for over 10,000 years. So has the rest of the Galactic Confederation. We settled our differences through discussion and compromise long ago." "That sounds wonderful," Captain Choi said. "Your civilization must be very advanced socially." "But how did you develop such powerful technology if you were always fighting?" Thelvar asked. Captain Choi considered her answer carefully. "War forces rapid innovation. When your survival depends on having better tools than your enemy, you learn to improve quickly. Much of our technology was originally developed for military purposes and later adapted for peaceful uses." This explanation troubled Thelvar. In Velani society, technology was developed slowly and carefully, with committees studying every innovation for decades before implementation. The idea of rapid development driven by conflict was alien to him. Intelligence Officer Lim Jun had been listening to their conversation. "If you do not mind me asking," he said to Thelvar, "how does your Galactic Confederation handle disputes between species?" "We have a council system," Thelvar explained. "When there is a disagreement, representatives from all species meet to discuss the problem. They continue talking until everyone agrees on a solution." "What if someone refuses to follow the council's decision?" Lim Jun asked. Thelvar looked confused. "Why would they refuse? The council's decision is for the good of everyone." "But what if they disagree with that assessment?" "Then they would continue discussing until they understand why the decision is correct." Lim Jun exchanged a look with Captain Choi. The Velani seemed to genuinely believe that all conflicts could be resolved through patient discussion. They had never encountered a species that might simply refuse to cooperate. On the third day, Strategic Advisor Dr. An Yu joined the conversations. She was fascinated by the Galactic Confederation's structure and asked many detailed questions about their economy, politics, and social systems. "How many species belong to your confederation?" she asked. 47 intelligent species across 1,200 worlds, Thelvar answered proudly. "We have achieved perfect harmony and cooperation." "How do you handle resource distribution across so many worlds?" Dr. An Yu asked. "Each world provides what it can and receives what it needs," Thelvar explained. "The Council calculates the optimal allocation for everyone's benefit." Dr. An Yu made notes on her tablet. "What happens if a world cannot provide its quota due to natural disasters or equipment failures?" "The other worlds compensate," Thelvar said simply. "We all help each other." "And what if a world has more resources than the Council thinks they need?" Thelvar looked puzzled by the question. "Why would they need more than the optimal allocation?" Dr. An Yu realized that the Galactic Confederation operated on principles that would seem impossible to most humans. They had achieved a level of cooperation and trust that human civilization had never reached. But she also saw potential problems. "What if someone outside your confederation threatens one of your worlds?" she asked. "There is no one outside the confederation," Thelvar replied. "We are the only known intelligent life in the galaxy." "Well, you were until now," Captain Choi pointed out with a smile. This comment made Thelvar suddenly serious. He had been so grateful for the rescue that he had not thought about the larger implications. Humanity was not part of the Galactic Confederation, and they had technology that matched or exceeded anything in known space. "Will humanity want to join the Confederation?" he asked carefully. Captain Choi and Dr. An Yu looked at each other. They had been wondering the same thing themselves. "We would need to learn much more about your society before making such a decision," Dr. An Yu said diplomatically. "And your leaders would need to decide if they want us as members." Thelvar nodded, but he was already worried about how the Confederation would react to humanity. These beings were friendly, but they were also clearly dangerous. Their entire culture was built around concepts that were foreign to peaceful galactic civilization. When the small fleet finally reached Vellani space, word of the rescue spread quickly through the Confederation's communication networks. Tol Wesh, the Vellani communications director, sent detailed reports to the Galactic Council describing humanity's capabilities and behavior. The reaction was immediate and intense. High Council member Pralthan of the Zeridian Republic called an emergency session as soon as he read the reports. Representatives from all 47 member species gathered in the Great Council chamber on the neutral world of Harmony Station. "These humans possess military technology that exceeds our defensive capabilities," Pralthan announced to the assembled delegates. "Their ships are designed for war, and their culture celebrates conflict resolution through force." Delegate Mervala of the Silari Union stood to speak. "According to the Vellani reports, the humans were peaceful and helpful. They risked their lives to save beings they had never met before." "That may be true," replied Delegate Vorth of the Kessian hegemony, "but their motives are unclear. Why would a species develop such powerful weapons if they are truly peaceful?" The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued that humanity should be welcomed as potential allies. Others worried that contact with a violent species would corrupt the peace that had lasted for millennia. Councillor Melandra of the Altarian Federation tried to find middle ground. "Perhaps we should invite them to send ambassadors," she suggested. "We can learn more about their intentions through peaceful dialogue." But war leader Vexthor of the Chromian Empire disagreed strongly. The Chromians were the closest thing to a military species in the Confederation, though even they had not fought a real war in thousands of years. "These humans are deathworlders," Vexthor declared. "They evolved on a planet so dangerous that it turned them into apex predators. Do you invite wolves into a gathering of sheep?" "That is an unfair characterization," Melandra protested. "They saved Vellani lives without asking for anything in return." "For now," Vexthor replied. "But what will they want later? What happens when they decide our resources would be better used by their species?" The debate grew more heated as delegates realized they were facing something unprecedented. For thousands of years, the Galactic Confederation had grown by peacefully, contacting species that shared their values of cooperation and harmony. They had never encountered a species that might choose conflict over compromise. Meanwhile, the human fleet was escorting the repaired Vellani ship toward their home world. Captain Choi Min had no idea that her rescue mission was being interpreted as a demonstration of military superiority by the galaxy's most powerful political organization. Diplomat Ryu Wan, who had joined the fleet as a cultural liaison, was working with Thelvar to establish basic diplomatic protocols between their species. She had extensive experience in human international relations, but nothing had prepared her for the complexity of dealing with an entire galactic civilization. "What should we expect when we meet your leaders?" she asked Thelvar. The Council will want to understand your intentions, he replied. They will ask many questions about human society and culture. That seems reasonable, Ryuwan said. We have many questions about your civilization as well. But Thelvar looked worried. There is something you should know, he said quietly. Some members of the Council are afraid of humanity. They think you might be dangerous. Dangerous? Why would they think that? Thelvar gestured around the human warship. Your technology, your history of warfare, your ability to survive in conditions that would kill most species. To many in the Confederation, these things are frightening. Ryu Wan began to understand the problem. Humanity's greatest strengths, their adaptability, their advanced technology, their willingness to help others, might be seen as threats by a civilization that had never needed such capabilities. We will need to be very careful about how we present ourselves, she told Captain Choi. The wrong words could turn the entire galaxy against us. As the human ships approached Villani space, both sides were preparing for a meeting that would determine the future of galactic civilization. The humans wanted to establish peaceful relations with their new neighbors. The Galactic Confederation was trying to decide whether humanity represented hope or the end of their peaceful age. Neither side realized that their first contact would lead to the greatest crisis the galaxy had ever faced. The news spread through the Galactic Confederation like wildfire. Within hours of the first reports from the Villani rescue, every major world knew that a new species had been discovered, and this species was unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. On the peaceful world of Serenitas, home to the gentle Lumari people, panic spread through the crystal cities as citizens heard about the Deathworlder ships. The Lumari had evolved in underground caverns and could barely survive in normal sunlight, let alone the harsh conditions that humans considered routine. Elder Silmithra called an emergency gathering of the Lumari High Council. These humans, she said, her voice trembling with fear, they come from a world of violence and death. What if they decide our crystal forests would make good building materials? Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. On Verdania, the plant-based Chlorans worried that humans might burn their world forests for fuel. On Aquatica, the water-dwelling Hydrozins feared that humans would drain their oceans. The fear was not based on anything humans had actually done. It came from the simple fact that humanity was so different from every other species in the Confederation. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the assumption that all intelligent species would naturally choose peace and cooperation. Humanity challenged that assumption. Captain Yelthara arrived at Valanis 3 days after her rescue. She was immediately summoned to the planetary capital to give a detailed report to the Villani government. What she told them only increased their concern about humanity. Their ships are floating fortresses, she explained to Prime Minister Nolthara and the gathered officials. Every system is designed for survival in hostile environments. Their medical equipment can treat species they have never seen before. Their engineers can repair damage that our best experts said was impossible to fix. But were they friendly? Asked Minister of Science Welkara. Very friendly, Captain Yelthara admitted. They risked their lives to save us and asked for nothing in return. But that almost makes it worse. How so? Because it means they are confident in their abilities. They helped us because they could afford to help us. A species only develops that kind of confidence when they are very, very dangerous. The Villani government immediately sent detailed reports to the Galactic Council, but their message was interpreted in different ways by different species. The peaceful species saw confirmation of their worst fears, while the more pragmatic species began to wonder if humanity might be useful allies. On the neutral world of Harmony Station, the Galactic Council continued their emergency sessions. High Council member Pralthan had been reviewing reports from intelligence services across the Confederation, and what he learned terrified him. According to our analysis, he announced to the assembled delegates, humanity's rescue operation was actually a demonstration of military superiority. They showed us that they can penetrate our most dangerous regions of space and operate with impunity. Delegate Mervala of the Solari Union disagreed. That assumes hostile intent. Perhaps they simply wanted to help. Then why did they send warships instead of medical vessels? Pralthan countered. Why did they approach through regions of space that would challenge our best military forces? The truth was that humans had sent their most capable ships because the rescue was dangerous, and they had approached through hazardous space because that was where the Volani ship was located. But to species that had never faced such dangers, the human actions looked like a calculated show of force. War leader Vexthor of the Chromian Empire stood to address the council. The Chromians were the most militaristic species in the Confederation, though their military was more like a police force by human standards. I have studied the human ship designs, Vexthor announced. Their technology is built for war on a scale we have never imagined. Their smallest vessels carry weapons that could destroy our largest battleships. This statement caused an uproar in the council chamber. Many species had never seen a real weapon of war, and the idea that humans might possess such technology was almost incomprehensible. Counselor Melandra tried to restore calm. We should not assume the worst about their intentions, she said. Perhaps we could invite them to send peaceful ambassadors. And if those ambassadors are actually advanced scouts for an invasion fleet? Vexthor replied. By the time we realize their true intentions, it will be too late. Meanwhile, the human fleet was still escorting the Volani ship toward their homeworld, unaware of the panic their rescue mission had caused. Admiral Park Jin had sent additional ships to reinforce Captain Choi's squadron, not because he expected trouble, but because first contact with aliens was too important to risk any accidents. The arrival of these additional human ships only made things worse. Intelligence services across the galaxy detected the energy signatures of a dozen human vessels moving through Confederation space. To the aliens, it looked like humanity was deploying a fleet for unknown purposes. Ambassador Li Han had joined the diplomatic mission and was working with diplomat Ryu Wan to prepare for formal contact with the Galactic Council. They had no idea that their peaceful intentions were being misinterpreted as threats. The Volani have been very helpful in explaining their political system, Li Han reported to Captain Choi. But I am concerned about some of the questions they are asking. What kind of questions? They keep asking about human military capabilities and our history of warfare. It seems like they are more interested in what we can do in a fight than in establishing trade relations. Captain Choi frowned. That is strange. During the rescue, they seemed more interested in our technology and culture. What they did not know was that the Volani were asking these questions because they had been instructed to gather intelligence by their own government. The peaceful Confederation was trying to assess whether humanity represented a military threat. Dr. Song Na had noticed something else troubling. During her medical examinations of the Volani crew, she had discovered that their biology showed no signs of adaptation to conflict or stress. Their bone structure was fragile, their muscle mass was low, and their nervous systems seemed designed for calm environments. They are completely unprepared for violence, she explained to Captain Choi. Their entire species seems to have evolved without significant predators or environmental threats. Is that why they seem so afraid of us? Captain Choi asked. Probably, Dr. Song-na replied. To them, we must seem like monsters. We are stronger, faster, and more aggressive than anything they have ever encountered. This realization made the human officers uncomfortable. They had come to help, but their very nature seemed to frighten the aliens they had rescued. On Harmony Station, the emergency council sessions continued. Delegate after delegate stood to express their fears about humanity. The Zenthari worried about human expansion into their territory. The Pelorians feared that human industry would pollute pristine worlds. The Kixari were concerned that human competitive nature would destroy the cooperation that held the Confederation together. Only a few voices spoke in favor of peaceful contact. Councillor Melandra of the Altarian Federation continued to argue for diplomacy supported by Peace Envoy Tilvaris of the Meridian Collective. We should judge them by their actions, not our fears, Tilvaris argued. They saved Villani lives when they had no obligation to do so. But the majority of the council was moving toward a different conclusion. High Council member Pral Than called for a formal vote on the human question. The safety of our civilization is at stake, he declared. We must decide whether to attempt peaceful contact or to take defensive measures against this potential threat. The vote was close, but fear won over hope. By a margin of just 3 votes, the Galactic Council decided to classify humanity as a potential hostile species and to begin defensive preparations. This decision was kept secret from most of the Confederation's population, but it set in motion a series of events that would bring the galaxy to the brink of war. Military forces that had not been activated in centuries began to mobilize. Ancient defense treaties were renewed. Peaceful species that had forgotten how to fight began remembering old skills, all because humanity had responded to a call for help with their characteristic speed, efficiency, and overwhelming capability. As the human fleet approached the Villani homeworld, Captain Choi Min received a message from Earth that would change everything. Captain, Communications Specialist Kong Hei announced, we are receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Park Jin. Put it through. Admiral Park Jin's image appeared on the main screen, and his expression was serious. Captain Choi, our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive fleet movements throughout the Confederation. It appears that our rescue mission has been interpreted as a hostile action. Captain Choi stared at the screen in shock. Sir, we have done nothing but help them. I know that, and you know that, Admiral Park Jin replied. But they do not seem to understand our intentions. The situation is deteriorating rapidly. As Captain Choi processed this information, she realized that humanity's first contact with galactic civilization had gone terribly wrong. Their greatest strength, their willingness to help others regardless of personal risk, had been seen as evidence of hostile intent. The secret military preparations began immediately after the Galactic Council's vote. On worlds across the Confederation, ancient defense systems were reactivated and forgotten weapons were brought out of storage. The peaceful galaxy was transforming itself into something it had not been for thousands of years, a war machine. War leader Vexthor of the Chromian Empire found himself in an unexpected position. As the only species with recent military experience, the Chromians were suddenly the most important members of the Confederation. His advice was sought by every major world government. How do we fight beings that can navigate through space that kills our ships asked General Morcathan of the Zalarian Defense Force during a secret strategy meeting. Vexthor studied the tactical reports on his display screen. The information was troubling. Human ships had moved through radiation storms and asteroid fields that would destroy Confederation vessels. Their technology was clearly superior to anything the galaxy possessed. "We cannot match them ship for ship," Vexthor admitted. "But we have numbers. If we can coordinate the fleets of 47 worlds, we might be able to overwhelm them through sheer quantity." "How many ships can we assemble?" asked Admiral Kelvara of the Zenthari Space Command. Vexthor consulted his calculations. "Approximately 8,000 vessels, if every world contributes their full defensive fleet. Most are scientific or transport ships, but we can arm them with whatever weapons we have available." The numbers sounded impressive, but Vexthor knew they were misleading. The Confederation's ships were not designed for battle. They were exploration vessels, research platforms, and cargo haulers with minimal defensive systems. Against human warships, they would be like fishing boats attacking destroyers. But fear drove the preparations forward. On the industrial world of Mechanica, the robotic synthesians began converting their manufacturing facilities to produce weapons. On the crystal world of Luminous, the energy-based Photonians started charging their planetary defense grids for the first time in millennia. Mobilization was kept secret from most of the Confederation's population, but rumors began to spread. Citizens on peaceful worlds started asking questions about the military exercises and the strange ships gathering in their star systems. On the Vellani homeworld, Captain Yelthara was growing increasingly uncomfortable with the questions she was being asked by government officials and military advisors. They wanted detailed information about human capabilities, ship designs, and weapon systems. "I am a scientist, not a spy," she told Prime Minister Noel Thara during another interrogation session. "I observed their rescue operations, not their military tactics." "But you must have noticed their combat capabilities," insisted General Threnvar, the highest-ranking military officer in the Vellani fleet. "They did not demonstrate any combat capabilities," Captain Yelthara replied firmly. "They helped us repair our ship and treated our injured crew members. I saw medical equipment and engineering tools, not weapons." General Threnvar was not satisfied with this answer. "Their ships carry obvious weapon systems. You must have seen them." "I saw defensive systems appropriate for travel through dangerous space," Captain Yelthara corrected. "That is not the same thing as offensive weapons." But her protests fell on deaf ears. The Vellani government had already decided that humanity represented a threat, and they were looking for evidence to support that conclusion rather than seeking the truth. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its journey toward the Vellani homeworld, unaware of the storm gathering around them. Admiral Park Jin had reinforced Captain Choi's squadron with additional ships, bringing the human presence to 15 vessels. This decision, made for purely protective reasons, had terrible consequences. Confederation intelligence services detected the arrival of more human ships and interpreted it as evidence of an impending invasion. "They are building up their forces," War Leader Vexthor announced to the Emergency Military Council. "This confirms our worst fears about their intentions." The truth was that Admiral Park Jin was simply being careful. First contact with aliens was too important to leave to chance, so he had sent his best ships and most experienced crews. But to the frightened Confederation, it looked like a military deployment. Captain Choi Min was beginning to sense the tension during her communications with Vellani officials. Their questions were becoming more pointed, and their responses were less friendly than before. Something has changed, she told diplomat Ryu Wan. When we first rescued them, they were grateful and curious. Now they seem suspicious and fearful. I have noticed it too, Ryu Wan replied. Ambassador Li Han thinks there might be political pressure from their government. Intelligence officer Lim Jun had been analyzing the communications patterns between Villani ships and their homeworld. What he discovered was troubling. Captain, he reported, I am detecting massive increases in military communications throughout this region of space. Fleet movements, weapon deployments, defensive preparations. It looks like they are preparing for war. Captain Choi felt a chill run down her spine. War against whom? Given the timing and the fact that we are the only new factor in their region, I would say war against us. The realization hit Captain Choi like a physical blow. The peaceful rescue mission had somehow triggered a military crisis, but she could not understand why. Humans had done nothing aggressive or threatening. She called an emergency meeting of her senior officers to discuss the situation. How did we get from rescue operation to military crisis? She asked the assembled group. Strategic advisor Dr. An. You had been thinking about this question. Cultural misunderstanding, she said simply. We see our capabilities as tools for helping others. They see the same capabilities as weapons for conquering enemies. But we helped them, Engineering Commander Nam Wu protested. We saved their lives, which proved that we could penetrate their defenses and operate in their territory at will, Dr. An Yu explained. From their perspective, we demonstrated that we could attack them whenever we wanted. Captain Choi began to understand the horrible irony of the situation. Humanity's greatest virtue, their willingness to help others despite personal risk, had been interpreted as evidence of hostile intent. What do we do now? She asked. We tried to communicate, diplomat Ryu Wan said. We explain our peaceful intentions and hope they will listen. But communication was becoming increasingly difficult. The Confederation military had begun jamming human transmissions and limiting access to their communication networks. The friendly exchanges of the first few days were being replaced by formal, suspicious contacts. On Harmony Station, the secret. Preparations continued. High Council member Pralthan was coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Ships from 47 worlds were converging on strategic positions throughout Confederation space. Status report, he demanded from Fleet Admiral Zurketh, who had been placed in command of the combined Confederation forces. We have 7,000 ships assembled and ready for deployment, Zurketh reported. Another 1,000 are still in transit from outer worlds. What about our intelligence on human capabilities? Limited, Zurketh admitted. Our analysis suggests they have approximately 15 ships in our territory, but each one appears to be equivalent to dozens of our vessels in terms of combat capability. Pralthan nodded grimly. Then we will need every ship we can get. The preparations were not going unnoticed by human intelligence services. On Earth, Admiral Park Jin was receiving reports about the massive military buildup throughout Confederation. Space! Sir, reported intelligence analyst Ko Ray, we are detecting fleet movements on a scale that suggests preparation for major military action. Conservative estimates suggest over 8,000 alien vessels are being positioned for potential combat operations. Admiral Park Jin studied the tactical displays with growing concern. The peaceful first contact mission had somehow turned into a potential interstellar war. What is the status of our own fleet? He asked Strategic Command General Beck So. We have 50 ships ready for immediate deployment, General Bayek So replied. But if these numbers are accurate, we would be facing odds of over 100 to 1. Admiral Park Jin realized that humanity was facing its first potential extinction-level threat since the development of nuclear weapons. But unlike previous crises, this one was based on a complete misunderstanding. We need to find a way to communicate with their leadership, he decided. Someone has to explain that we are not a threat. But communication was exactly what the Confederation leadership was trying to prevent. They feared that human diplomatic contact might be a prelude to attack, or worse, an attempt to divide the Confederation through political manipulation. The stage was set for a catastrophic conflict between two civilizations that had no real reason to fight. On one side, humanity, a species that had come to help and found themselves branded as invaders. On the other side, the Galactic Confederation, a peaceful alliance that had convinced itself that war was the only way to preserve peace. As the human fleet approached the Volani homeworld, Captain Choi Min received one final message from Admiral Park Jin. The moment of truth came when the massive Confederation fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the Volani homeworld. 8,000 ships appeared in formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. It was the largest military force assembled in galactic history. Captain Choi Min stood on the bridge of Sol's Hammer, watching her tactical displays as the alien fleet surrounded her 15 ships. The humans were outnumbered more than 500 to 1. Captain, Communications. Specialist Kang He announced, "We are being hailed by the alien fleet commander. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of an alien command ship. Fleet Admiral Zorketh appeared, flanked by officers from multiple species. His expression was grim and determined. "Human vessels," he announced. "You are trespassing in Confederation space with obvious hostile intent. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." Captain Choi felt her heart sink. After everything they had done to help, the aliens still saw them as enemies. But she remembered Admiral Park Jin's orders. "Do not fire first." "Admiral Zorketh," she replied calmly. "We are here on a peaceful mission. We responded to a distress call from the Volani ship Serenity's Edge and provided humanitarian assistance. We have committed no hostile acts." "Your presence here with a battle fleet suggests otherwise," Zorketh responded. "These are not battleships conducting a military operation," Captain Choi explained. "These are rescue vessels ensuring the safe return of the crew we saved. Our intentions are peaceful." On the Confederation command ship, War Leader Vex Thor studied the human formations through his tactical sensors. What he saw confused him. "Admiral," he said quietly to Zorketh, "their ships are not deployed in attack formation. They are positioned defensively around the Volani vessel." "A deception," Zorketh replied, but he sounded less certain than before. The standoff continued for tense minutes. On both sides, crews prepared for battle, while their commanders tried to find a way to avoid it. The slightest mistake, the smallest misunderstanding, could trigger a war that would devastate the galaxy. Then an unexpected voice joined the conversation. "Admiral Zorketh," came a transmission from the Volani ship. "This is Captain Yelthara. I request permission to speak." Zorketh hesitated. The Volani captain was not part of the military command structure, but her ship was at the center of this crisis. "Permission granted," he said finally. Captain Yelthara's image appeared on screens throughout both fleets. She looked tired but determined. "I have spent the last week with these humans," she announced. I have seen their technology, observed their behavior, and spoken with their officers. They are not invaders. They are rescuers. Captain Yelthara, Zerketh said sternly, you may have been deceived by their propaganda. No, Captain Yelthara replied firmly. I have been educated by their actions. When my ship was dying in the void, they risked their lives to save us. When my crew was injured, they treated us with their own medicine. When our engine was destroyed, they repaired it with their own tools. These are not the actions of conquerors. Her words carried weight because everyone knew she had actually experienced human contact firsthand. But the military commanders were still skeptical. Their capabilities remain a threat, war leader Vexthor argued. Regardless of current intentions, they could change their minds. It was then that an unexpected ally spoke up. Thelvar, the Vallani science officer, had been monitoring the communications from his position on the human ship. May I address both fleets? He asked Captain Choi. Captain Choi nodded and opened a channel that reached every ship in the system. My name is Thelvar of the Vallani Science Division, he began. I have spent the last week studying human culture and technology. What I learned changed my understanding of intelligence itself. The gathered fleets listened as Thelvar explained what he had discovered about humanity. These beings evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day, he said. Storms that could destroy cities, earthquakes that could split continents, predators that could hunt them for sport. But instead of making them cruel, this harsh world made them compassionate. How? So? Asked a voice from the Confederation fleet. Because they learned that survival depends on helping each other, Thelvar explained. When disaster strikes, humans do not abandon the weak or flee to safety. They run toward danger to help others. This is why they came when we called for help. This is who they are. His words began to have an effect on the alien crews. Many had never considered that harsh environments might produce helpful rather than hostile beings, but it was Dr. Song Na who provided the final piece of understanding. She requested permission to address the fleets from her medical bay, where she was still treating recovered Vallani crew members. I am Dr. Song Na, Chief Medical Officer of the Human Fleet, she announced. In my medical bay, I have 3 Vallani patients who were injured during their ship's emergency. I have been treating them for a week. She paused to let this information sink in. According to military logic, these patients should be my prisoners or hostages. Instead, they are my guests. I have shared my food with them, taught them about human culture, and learned about theirs. This is how humans treat people who need help. One of the Vallani patients, an engineer named Kolren, appeared on screen beside Dr. Song Na. She is telling the truth, he said to the watching fleets. The humans have treated us like honored guests, not prisoners. Their medical care is better than our own, and they refuse to accept any payment for their help. The testimony from actual witnesses began to crack the wall of suspicion that had built up around humanity. But the final breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Li Han had been working frantically behind the scenes to establish contact with moderate voices in the Confederation. She had finally managed to reach Counselor Mel Andra and Peace Envoy Til Varys. May we address the fleets? Mel Andra requested from Harmony Station. Fleet Admiral Zerketh was surprised to hear from the political leadership, but he granted permission. Counselor Mel Andra appeared on screen alongside Til Varys. Both looked exhausted from days of emergency, sessions, and political fighting. This crisis is based on fear, not facts, Mel Andra announced. We have spent so long living in peace that we forgot how to recognize friends from enemies. The humans responded to a call for help. Tilvaris added, "They risked their lives to save strangers. These are not the actions of a hostile species." But war leader Vexthor was not ready to give up his position. "Their technology remains dangerous," he argued. "Even if they are peaceful now, what about the future?" It was Captain Choi Min who provided the answer that finally broke the deadlock. "War leader Vexthor," she said, "you are absolutely right. Human technology is dangerous. We are dangerous. We evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most of your species." Her honesty surprised everyone, but, she continued, "we are dangerous to your enemies, not to your friends. When humans commit to protecting someone, we bring all of our capabilities to that task. The same technology that frightens you could be used to defend you." "What are you proposing?" Fleet Admiral Zorketh asked. "Partnership," Captain Choi replied simply. "The galaxy is vast and full of unknown dangers. You have achieved something wonderful. A peaceful civilization spanning hundreds of worlds. But peace requires protection, and protection requires strength." Diplomatic Corps Director Jiang Mi had arrived from Earth with additional ships carrying negotiation teams. She now joined the conversation. "We propose a mutual defense treaty," she announced. "Humanity will help protect the Confederation from external threats, and in return, you can help us learn about peaceful civilization." The proposal created a buzz of conversation across the alien fleet. This was not what they had expected from supposed invaders. "You would place your military under our command?" Fleet Admiral Zurketh asked skeptically. "No," Jiang Mi replied. "We would fight alongside you as equals. But we would commit to defending any Confederation world that came under attack." "And what do you want in return?" asked Counselor Melandra from Harmony Station. "Knowledge," Captain Choi answered. "You have achieved something humans have struggled with for thousands of years, lasting peace between different peoples. We want to learn how you did it?" War leader Vexthor was still suspicious. "How do we know you will not turn your weapons against us once you are inside our territory?" Ambassador Li Han had anticipated this question. "Because we are already inside your territory," she pointed out. "We have 15 ships surrounded by 8,000 of yours. If we wanted to attack you, this would be a very poor way to do it." The logic was undeniable. If humans had hostile intentions, they would not have voluntarily placed themselves in a hopeless tactical position. Thelvar added another perspective. "I have studied human history during my time on their ships," he said. "They have fought many wars, but they have also created many alliances. When humans make friends, they stay loyal to those friends even when it costs them dearly." "Give us an example," requested Zurketh. Captain Choi thought for a moment. "During our Second World War, humans from one continent crossed an ocean to help humans on another continent fight against oppression. Millions died defending people they had never met, simply because it was the right thing to do.